So I just watched your Vice documentary, The Story of a Thousand Miles. I watched it last night, so it was fresh in my mind, and I learned a lot from it. I love these documentaries that Vice do. You know, I watched the Thong Song one. I interviewed Cisco about that one, but this one's very different story. And I knew, I knew some of the stuff, but I didn't know a lot of it. And one of the things that I wanted to start with was asking about your ballet background because I dance ballet myself, and I knew you did already from the White Houses video that you released after 1,000 miles, which I really enjoyed, but I didn't know the extent of it. And then I was like, that kind of circular piano thing at the beginning almost sounds like something someone would do ballet drills to. So did that experience inform the music that you wrote, particularly this song, of course?
That's a great question. Yeah, you definitely found the tie between the two. I think so much of my influence as a writer, or particularly with my piano playing, my instrumentals and stuff, is all coming from classical pieces that I learned from, studying ballet for so many years. Yeah, my experience as a dancer directly has influenced the way that I write, for sure. And also, as an aside, I think it's important to have I always have one waltz on every record. I don't know if I had a waltz on Love is an Art. This is my last record. So far up to there. And a waltz is, for those that don't know, you're a dancer, so you know, that's like 1, 2, 2. Like anyone can do that dance,
That actually, I'm going to jump ahead because as we're talking about dancing, have you seen Mark Kanamura from So You Think You Could Dance with the viral video he did to 1,000 Miles?
No.
You haven't seen it? It went viral. He actually, I'll send it to your publicist so you can see it later. But
okay,
he's like got hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram, and he lip syncs to songs and dance. And he did a one to 1,000 Miles where he was wearing a dress made out of paper that looked like pianos, and he was like playing himself.
Okay.
It went viral. People started doing parodies of it, and then he actually auctioned off the paper pianos for GLAAD for like $100,000 or something.
Oh, that is amazing. Okay, yeah. That's a great ending to that story. Amazing.
Yeah, but it was because it's So You Think You Could Dance, and that's a show I very much enjoy. I thought I'd bring that up. You need to check it out. It came out like a year ago. But going back to
behind. Yeah.
So going back to your ballet experience, one thing that I learned from the documentary, the Vice documentary, that I did not know about was that you talk about how you sort of got into music and made that more your focus because you went to ballet school and it was not a good experience. Do you mind elaborating a little bit? Was it like a boarding school?
Yeah, the School of American Ballet it's come a long way. It's so different from how it was in the 90s. They're doing a lot of work to broaden how they audition people. I think how they do their scholarship programs. A lot of the kids are on scholarship, which is great. And it's just was led by the director of New York City Ballet at the time, Peter Martins. And I think it was just it's been a very, very toxic environment for a long time. I did not like what I saw. I did not like how some of the teachers treated my fellow classmates. I love Balanchine technique. I think it's brilliant. So that's why I went, but it just soured my whole plan. Like if I was going to go into a dance troupe or whatever, I was going to, audition for other companies. I didn't even audition for any companies. So yeah, I just got burnt out in that school. And I really think that they're taking the time now to really change it up. It's the same school that is Disney Plus did a whole documentary on it. I can't remember now what it's called, but in-depth documentary. Yeah.
Was there abuse there, either not necessarily that you experienced firsthand, maybe, or that you witnessed? Because like Julianne Hough, who has talked about it, she went away when she was quite young to a boarding school. She was like 10 or something, and it was pretty. She's talked about how it was a pretty bad experience for her. It was like more like a mental abuse.
Yes. Well, because there's not a lot of they had no resources, so you don't have any of the mental you're so young, you're moving away from home, you don't have the support that you need emotionally, you don't have someone you can really go to and talk to. I mean, I did have an amazing, her name was Anita. She was like kind of ran the dorms, and she was just someone who was so warm that I felt like I could just go and talk to her. But I don't think they had the resources there to really support the kids in the way that they needed emotionally. I do think though it's gotten much better since it was when I was there.
So, as the documentary says, it was that experience that led you to sort of pivot away from dance, and you took refuge in music. How long had this? It seems like the at least the piano part that I just mentioned from A Thousand Miles was it had been in your head for some time. How long did it take to go from your head to being this iconic song?
Well, I was starting to work in a studio and put my songs, I only had like 6 songs, I don't know, but like record them. And was with someone in the studio, a producer at the time, and I would play this idea. And he was like, well, why you should finish that idea. You know, you just sort of need, I had been planning to do it. But sometimes, I don't know, I wrote the riff of that riff that everyone knows like a year before I actually wrote the rest of the song to go with it. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. That's just, sometimes you have to take breaks and then start up again.
I get the impression you weren't even, I mean, it seems like once people at your label or Ron Fair heard it, they were like, this is a hit, but that you didn't have that impression because it was just called Interlude. It wasn't even like first on your demo CD. It was like seventh, that implies to me in that sequencing, you weren't expecting that would be the single or whatever. Did you not realize what an earworm you had on your hands?
I guess not. I mean, I still kind of wish that it was called Interlude. Like, I don't know, it's so obvious as A Thousand Miles. Like it can do, well, to me, it's an interlude. So it can break in your day. It's like you listen to it, you like your hat. It's I have to look up the exact definition of interlude, but interlude to me is like this in between. It's a pause. It's a short piece of music. Like if we were talking about the classical genre, like 3 minutes, I don't know if that'd be considered an interlude, but just feels like, okay, I'm going to play the song. This is an interlude in your day. And then you're going to go back, I guess not. I mean, I'm certainly, I don't make for a very good pop star or like pop, especially at that time. I didn't really look at myself like that, I guess, too. So I wasn't like, this is a smash, like what they were saying about it. Like, yeah, Vanessa, fuck yeah, you wrote a smash. Finally, now you're gonna get some. Like, you just write a song and then you just write another song and then you write another song. Like,
We were just talking before you hopped on the Zoom about that time, the early 2000s. We were actually talking about it in terms of the fashion, like the TRL fashion.
Bad.
It was the worst. The absolute
worst. And it's so sad for me. It's sad for me, So, but you know what? I survived.
I was just like, people will like shit all over the 70s or 80s fashion or whatever, but I'm like, those juicy couture sweats, those really low, like you have to get like a bikini wax to wear jeans. So you didn't really fit in
that trend.
Juicy was like a company, but I don't know why people thought wearing jeans that are so low that if they were a half inch shorter, you'd be, it would be X-rated.
Line. It wasn't Juicy though. It was, I remember it was a different brand that made those type of jeans. But anyway, we survived.
But you definitely didn't fit in with that, as you were sort of implied, just that we survived. We can mark ourselves safe on Facebook. Safe from the fashions of early 2000s. But like I said, that was, you were, as the documentary says, like the minute that they got the video for 1,000 Miles, MTV like added it to very high rotation. It was a very big MTV hit. But even then, not just in terms of how you were dressing, but in terms that you had this song that was very classical inspired and everything. It was like, you kind of weren't fitting in with what was going on at that time. Were you surprised by how massive this song was when it came out?
Yeah. And it was also a very difficult time. Like, I think finding manager, like I to this day, like I find myself to mainly be the only woman in a room in a lot of music industry situations. It's definitely getting better, but it's tough, and I think that the art of like finding a manager, especially your first manager, being the manager you're with your whole, is very rare. And I just didn't feel like I was protected during that time. So even though it was like blew up, it was really quite miserable in certain ways. To be shipped around, you gotta do this three radio stations a day. Like you're just like selling, you start to feel like a monkey, like you're just in, and at the same time, you'd be like, you can't, like I said in the documentary, like you cannot complain about this, girl, because you're about to be able to do this as your job. Like I didn't have to waitress anymore. I can, like to this day, I think the ultimate dream was for me to be able to support myself with my music. So it was a tough time. It's like it was a very confusing time, like an enigma type of situation.
Can you tell me a bit more about when you said you didn't feel protected? Is that regarding the situation which is touched on in the film about, you had an A&R person you weren't getting along with, and you went to Jimmy Iovine to sort of get out of that situation, and you almost got dropped as a result of it. This album almost didn't even come out as a result of that conflict.
I think what I have been good at in my past somehow, because I've made so many stupid decisions. I mean, well, I don't know any young version of any of us that was that smart, but I was good at finding people like Michelle Thomas, who also speaks, my product manager at the time. I just gravitated toward her, and she did so much to help me and support me during that time, like what she was talking about with the photo shoots and like she knew it was a really bad situation I was coming out of. Yeah, I was like, what's the phrase where like the vultures descend on you? It's like baby Vanessa, like, and it's just all these guys. It's like, it's just, yeah, it was not good. It was not good. But like I said, I survived it. And some great things came out of it.
Absolutely. What happened with the A&R guy? Was it I imagine you weren't even 18 yet, right? You were like 17, maybe 18.
I think, no, I was older. There was so many inappropriate things happening that, at the time, this is so interesting. Like I'm born in 1980. To this day, it's like, and Amy Schumer makes a great joke about this in the Me Too movement, and how like we're the older, like we're the women that put up with so much more, because we're like, well, like in this instance in particular, it's like, well, he didn't touch me. So all the others, it's like, so that's good. So I can just deal with all this other stuff that's totally inappropriate. And now I know it's considered harassment or whatever. So I guess for me, a lot of the events that have happened over the course of my career with different men, I look at it with a new filter now, because I'm like, that's what this movement allows women to do. You're like, oh, that's not okay. And Schumer's joke was so funny. She's like, and then these young girls come along and they're just like, no, that's not okay with me. I'm not good with that. I mean, she's funnier than me, so she's a hilarious joke, but that is so true about like women, for at least in my opinion, like women that are born like 1980, we have much lower standards.
Well, a lot of it was like a gray area. I mean, it's one thing if someone grabs your ass or whatever, like that's very clear cut. Like this person has done something wrong. But when it's like a remark or, a condescending attitude or, a leer or whatever, it's a little harder to like.
So messages, or like also calls, like, it's so difficult when you're working with someone, they have power over you. You need to not ruin this. Like this is, I always think about mothers who need to feed their babies, and they cannot ruin this relationship with their boss. They are going to not be able to support their family. They are not going to speak out about this. And, that's why it is important to the women that can, they're in a position to speak out. They should, because it protects those women they lost. But yeah, like calls in the middle of the night, like wanting to hang out with me and my friend. I was probably 19. Like this guy's in his 40s, like inviting me and my friends out, like giving us drugs. So many weird phone calls and coercion. Like if you didn't make him feel like, I think a lot of women share, like, if you don't make a man feel a certain way, like you like them, like they need to feel like that you're into them, they're going to punish you. So that's where it got to. And there was also harassment happening with my producer at the same time. There was like, it was crazy, but I chose to phrase it in a way in the documentary where it's just possessiveness, because it's a whole other story, you know. And I hit my wall though, and that's when I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't continue on with these people. So that was a big moment. That was a big moment for me. Yeah.
So when you went to Jimmy Iovine to make this complaint about the A&R guy, you know, you were being told sort of similar situation you just said with the mothers that want to feed their kids, like, you can't do this or you will end your career before it's even really started. What was the reaction when you went and did that anyway, even though your manager was saying don't?
He was very, he listened. He didn't fire him. Similar to me in certain ways, he was like, well, did he touch you? You know, I was like, no. So I don't think, you know, but at the time that wouldn't be grounds to be fired. He would totally be fired now, 100% be fired. Like, if I showed him all the message, like, it would be over. But it's a different time. It's a different time. But Jimmy listened to me, and he didn't drop me for some. I mean, maybe he was going to drop me, but he didn't. And I somehow got another, you know, it worked out differently. And then there was, you know, along the way, there are problems with everybody in certain ways. Because again, it was just a different time. It was just a different time. And over the course of my career, I mean, maybe someday I'll write a book.
Please do.
I feel like everybody has to die first, though. Like,
no. Right now, I would read it.
I talked to Stevie about this. I'm like, Stevie, when are you going to write your book? Like, her stories are so incredible. And she comes from such a positive, Stevie Nicks.
There's only one female Stevie, yes.
And she's such a teacher, a natural teacher, in the way that she presents her story and the lessons that she's learned. And it's like, I just want her to write her book. And she's like, Vanessa, I gotta wait for more people to die. Like, she's like, I am not releasing certain stories until they're off the planet, you know?
I interviewed her a few months ago when her movie came out, when her concert film came out, and totally brought that up. Like, when's your book come out? And she said she was thinking of doing some kind of coffee table book that would be more like kind of the things she's been putting on Instagram lately, these like mini essays or whatever. And I was
lighter,
like,
right?
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, she was so great. I mean, at the end of the interview, she was like, well, I'm sure we'll talk again. And I was like, when? Tomorrow? Like, I didn't want the interview to end. She's awesome.
She's delicious.
Yeah, she's so great. So the film, going back to the sort of story you were telling, it sort of frames it that you were on the precipice of being dropped or being blacklisted at your record label. And then Ron Fair swooped in and saved the day by discovering this track 7, this interlude, at the time called interlude track, realizing it was going to be a hit, and sort of, you know, saying, you can't, you know, we got to give this girl a chance. Is that really how it, you know, and he's in the film, and I actually really enjoyed watching how excited he still gets hearing the song. Yeah, he's so dramatic. He's like, yes. But is that an accurate portrayal of, you know, because you've talked about how you had various problems, and it kind of makes it seem like he's like the savior, you know?
Yeah, well, that's true. That's totally true. That he heard that, and he got permission to just produce that song first and then present it. And then we got permission to finish the rest. Like, it's all accurate. Again, I will say, and I haven't spoken to him, and I think a lot of particularly men in the industry, there's not a lot of female producers, which is something that I'm really working on, helping in the music industry, in the community. I wonder if they're having their personal reckoning about how their behavior during that time and how they felt like they needed to sell women artists. It was so about, it was also like, it was just as important the way you looked. It was just as important your photo shoot, or what were Like, I remember somebody saying, like, every spot is real estate. Like, how does she look? How does she look? Like, never come to label if you're gonna, unless you looked at, like, you know, that Stevie could go talk about that forever. I mean, this is, we are getting so much better with that, but it doesn't really totally change until there's more women in powerful positions in the music industry, because it's just a man right now. It's still like that man story. You know, they're writing the story.
I'm kind of surprised, to be honest, that you did this documentary, because, you know, obviously it's bringing up some painful things from, and I know
I am too.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I've read, you know, relatively recent interviews, like in the last 5 years, where like you didn't really want to talk about 1,000 miles specifically that much. And, you know, some of that comes out in the film, the mixed feelings you have. You say at one time you like hated the song and kind of had to come back around to it. So yeah, why, you say you're surprised you did it. I'm surprised. Why did you want to do this?
Because I talked to the Dan, the producer, and his team, wonderful team. Is Emily? Dan, the team that wanted to. Sorry, my dog is telling me that he has to pee. You need to wait. They were fantastic. Like, we talked. Because I came into the call, I was like, I don't really know if I want to do this. Like, I don't, like, what story am I telling here? You know, what story? I want this to be accurate. I want it to be helpful. Like, I feel like everything I do now, especially since having a child, it's like, I just want to make whatever industry I'm in, like, kind of better for our kids, you know? So like, this has to be done right, you know? And it just was, it was like, I thought it was really wonderfully done. And the other thing is that, and it really shows how, like, I love reading about, and maybe you probably sharing this, like reading about how other artists work in their process and how they grow over time, or what's their philosophy and their approach to their work. And I think that I was able to share that. And yeah, and I think maybe that would be helpful for younger artists too, you know, maybe.
Did you get any closure from doing this, given that, I mean, I'm assuming there might have been some residual stuff that you were still dealing with from the early part of your career, and from the fact that, you know, you are very associated with that song, which is something that a lot of artists that have their first single be a massive hit is something they have to, you know, contend with for the rest of their career. Was there anything, not to sound like cliched, but healing or cathartic or anything about making this documentary?
Yes, I will say reconnecting with Michelle Thomas has been incredible, because she was like my safe haven during that time. And I will say just seeing the relationship between me and my mom was cool. Like, we've come a long way. Like, it's been a bumpy road, and she's as you can see, a really passionate, smart, wonderful, like, supportive mom. And family relationships can be messy, and especially when having success like that with your kid, it's like, it's weird, it's fraught, it's like, it's a whole thing, and we navigated it. And I have a lot of counseling, cognitive behavioral therapy, we've both been, you know, and I thought I love that. And the other thing is about the song, I have to tell you, like, it used to really bother me at times when I play in certain shows and I'm presenting like a new record, and it's like people are heckling, like really shit-faced and yelling about, I want to hear those. That's like, it's usually guys, and it's like really annoying and really disrespectful, and it makes me fucking crazy. But I figured it out. So like, and this is again, this is why you need a great manager. You know, I called Rashawn after a shitty show one night, and I was like, how do we do this? Like, I want to present all this new music, and like, you know, these guys came in so drunk and they wanted their karaoke moment and they didn't even hear it. He's like, Vanessa, just play it first. And look, don't get me wrong, I play a lot of other old songs too that I think people will want to hear or remind them of a certain time or whatever. But a lot of the people that come to my shows have kind of I've grown up with them, so they've followed me through all these records. But even if you come and you just want to be like, oh, I wonder what that sounds like live, let's go check out that girl. I literally, this is how I my show. I said, guys, I'm going to let the elephant out of the cage. Welcome, welcome. I'm so happy to be with you. Let's do this. I play the song. And then after I play 1,000 Miles, I say, okay, now let's let the show begin. And it's like,
that's ballsy.
And then it's like, that gives them permission. or a space to be like, okay, wait, so I'm either gonna like step into this journey with this artist, like for the night, for this next hour and a half, or I'm like, did I get my feeling? I'm out. Like, and no one, like, I've never
No
seen
one
anybody.
leaves, right?
No one
Yeah.
leaves. And so I'm not someone that wants to hold people there because they're waiting for like the big thing at the end. Like, I like to present like a really nice, thoughtful, like journey of music, like that's my approach. Anyway, long answer, but
No, great answer.
I figured out some solutions.
Well, towards the end of the film, you mentioned your mom. Your mom's in the film, it's filmed at her house, and she's definitely your biggest cheerleader. And there is that moment. It's funny because I was saying how you have mixed feelings about the song, or there was a time when you hated the song, and you say something like, "Oh, I'm sure there's people that hate the song," and she's like, no one hates the song. Like, she's like, she's definitely your biggest cheerleader. But I am interested in the dynamic you had, because it's my understanding that there was maybe a time, as you mentioned, when guys didn't even talk for a while, and then when you did the film, I don't know if you're still living at your parents' house, now that we're a little more into the pandemic than we were when it was shot, but you were at that time.
Oh yeah, baby.
You still are? You there?
Well, no, not now. So we lived with them all last summer. Of course, that's the timing of when it's like this sort of documentary idea comes across my plate. I'm like, oh my God, I'm living with my parents. Like, I remember calling Dan after they were like they had finished shooting, and this is like months after they shot it last summer. And I was like, wait, Dan, are people gonna think that I live with my parents? Like, is that the and I'm like, I have living with my parents, with my family, like our two families, just we're in isolation together. And I was like, okay, I need to like at least say that I'm living with them now because of the pandemic. That was a funny moment. But yeah, no, it was that's one of the wonderful things that have happened because of this horrific situation. I've gotten closer with my parent. I mean, I never, like, my husband, excuse me, he's living with his in-laws all summer. He did great. Like, he didn't want to leave. Like, I don't even know what happened last summer, but anyway, now we were living in Nashville. We sold our house, and we have been living upstate in a rental home. And so that our daughter can go to school. And I've been substitute teaching at her school all year.
No way.
So that's cool. What we've been doing. Yeah.
That's so cool.
So I'm always available. I'm like literally like their main substitute teacher because I have no job.
What do you teach? Just any subject, or?
It's Montessori, so they do like work cycles, and it's first grade to third grade. And I'm in like, I'll go, like, all the classrooms are cohorts because of the virus. So I double mask, and I'm fully vaccinated now too. Almost the whole staff is at the school, and I'll just go and they plug me into whatever classroom needs extra support.
That's so cool. So was there, again, using the word closure or whatever, was there anything kind of full circle or whatever about doing this film about your first single with your mom there in your parents' home, as you say, after working through some stuff, was there any kind of like epiphany or emotional moment to that?
I really am really thrilled that I like took the chance and was part of this documentary, because first of all, it's the real story. And second of all, and so I get to see it. And second of all, it made me very proud of the work that I've done with my family and where I'm at with my mom. And she is totally my biggest fan. And I just feel so lucky. A lot of times it's really hard for a parent to take a risk and like support their kid in wanting to do something that's really, really hard. It's not a very conventional idea. They don't think you're going to make any money. Like, that's why I said in the beginning of this, I think I said this to you, it's like the ultimate dream is like to be able to do if you're an artist, you want to be able to support yourself doing your art. Like, that's the ultimate, and it's really hard. And she supported me in that idea. So I'm very grateful to her, no matter what transpired, all the ups and downs. And, it's at the end of the day, we are, we share a value system. She's taught me so much. I have so much respect for her. And I think the whole world got to see sort of like get this lady an agent. Like, she is the most quintessential Jewish mom from Queens. Like, she is everybody's Jewish mother.
Absolutely. She was very enjoyable part of the film. Was she aware when, the stuff you were talking about a little while back about the stuff that was going on the harassment, the stuff with your A&R guy, all of that stuff. Was she aware of it, that you were going through it at that time? Did she try to do anything to intervene, or, was she involved in that at all? Or did you keep that from, did you protect her from that?
Yeah, a lot of that I kept from her. I mean, she knows now. Like, I actually don't know if they know everything that happened. I don't know. I think, well, she definitely supported me the time, like, to speak up and speak out, but I'm sure she was quite nervous. Knowing my mom, like, I'm sure she was quite nervous that I was going to blow my record deal,
Have you had conversations about it more recently with her?
I haven't, but she got to see the story too, and she said she's very proud of me. My dad too. I know that there was a time where it's like, well, they're your boss. Like, this person's your boss, or this person's your boss. Like, just try and make it work. Not that they wanted me to be compliant, but like, I'm not. It's hard. It's like you're not telling your parents everything that's going on, and it's just a very strange. It's just a very strange situation when you are so young. So you're like, I'm barely a grown up. You know what I mean? But I am 21. Like, I'm 20 or 21. So it's like, I got this, guys. But you know what? We all survived. We survived.
Do you ever wonder if it would have been a better situation had you gotten signed when you were older? Do you ever think like you got signed or had your success too young, too early?
Yeah. I mean, look, I can't say again, I can see all the building blocks of my life, like, upon reflection. Like, I get it. I wouldn't be here without all of these situations and all of, like, the series of triumphs, the series of tragedies, the series of realizations, the series of suffering, all of it together is like, oh, okay, like, life is an endless up and down. Like, this is how things go. I can't cherry pick how it should have gone. Like, I would have never been able to see it then. But yes, I do feel like there are some artists that have released their first records that feel pretty fully formed. You know what I mean? Like, I think of Nina Simone. I think of Fiona Apple. I think of even, I don't know, my husband is a band called Deer Tick, and his first record, War Elephant, he recorded and released when he was 18 years old. I remember when I met him, I listened to it. I was like, that's your first record? It took me 4 albums to get to that. I would say, so I think in certain ways, yeah, I was like kind of plucked very young. But I can't hate on myself, because it's like, I really have to practice. We have to all practice self-compassion,
Absolutely. Well, on the lighter side, your mother was very enjoyable in the film, but also very enjoyable in the film was, I did not know until, obviously, I was pleasantly surprised to see that Terry Crews was in it, and actually did his entire interview in a car, which I thought was awesome. He's like, it looks like it's like, a scene from White Chicks. So of course, I'd be remiss if we're doing an interview that's about set tied to 1,000 Miles without, of course, asking about White Chicks, because in some ways there are a lot of people who probably know this song as much for that movie as from you. I mean, I don't know if you ever saw Terry do lip sync battle, where he like lip sync to it with like a ribbon, like the Olympic gymnast. So like, it's all, it's like part of his, he says in the film, it like changed his life too. And I'm wondering, how that sat well with you, because now I think it's a scene everybody loves, but I think at the time it kind of, if I'd been you, I don't mean to project here, I might've been a little bit insulted, because they were saying it was like the whitest song ever. It's like,
I always got the joke that, well, because I also, the Wayans told me, like, they asked me if I would do it, and they explained the joke, and they're big fans of the song and of me and support, like, so, and that was what Terry tried to explain. He's like, the whole point of the joke is like, he actually really loved the song. Like, that's what he was talking about, that song. This is the power of music at times, where it's like gender, race, language, age, whatever, it just blows through all that, and it's just something that a lot of people feel like they can connect to. I think there was a time where it was like going viral. People were like, oh my god, you're the girl from White Chicks. That's annoying sometimes, because I'm like, sometimes it does sound literally like they're just someone yelling, hey, you're a white chick, or like, I don't know, like, it's like, if you don't even hear someone correctly, it's like, which is fine. I am a white chick, but it's like, it's this very weird kind of consistent highlight all the time. And then at the same time, like, I'm like, it's so fabulous how it's interwoven. It has interwoven Terry's career and my career. Like, we became friends because of it. Like, we talk, we text, he's so wonderful. And like, oh my gosh, he is one of those people that's like a natural teacher too, in the way that he speaks about his experiences. And so it's really my honor to be connected to his career and that scene and whatever. I mean, it's part of pop culture now.
How did you react when you first saw the scene or the scenes? There's two. It shows up in the film twice, I believe.
I don't remember. I probably laughed. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I think I probably laughed.
A lot of rappers have actually sampled 1,000 Miles. I know T.I. did, I know Cameron did, but like, I don't know if you've seen recently, just maybe in the last couple months, there's this group of rappers that they're led by a guy named Spinnabenz, and they sampled and did a freestyle over the piano loop, and it's gone like on YouTube, like 15 million views, like a crazy number of views. I don't know if you've seen that. What do you think it is about this song that sort of lends itself? There's, to sample, there's two parts in my mind that could be, either the piano part or the da 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 da, like,
right.
It's very sample friendly.
Sort of.
You don't think so?
I've read, it's like, I feel like they made it work very well, I thought, musically in a way, like, but it's really deceivingly difficult to sample. I think people use it a lot, but it's like, it's hard to make it flow with another part of the song. No, I've seen it. I call them the golf cart boys, and I think that I love that they're yeah, I like their outfits. I don't, obviously don't know who they're singing about or anything, but it's one of those situations where they built the song around my song, and I approved they released it before they asked me if they could use it. So I said yes. We did a deal. I was like, sure, you can use it. I'm not gonna take away their song that they made.
Is it flattering to you whether it's people sampling it or covering it or even doing lip sync battle to it, like to see the song continue to take on all these new lives? Or is there the part of you, as is mentioned in the documentary, that's sort of like I said, I was a little surprised that you would do a documentary that was so tied to this one song,
Well, I thought that they got to, just to touch on that, and correct me if I'm wrong, like, I wonder if you feel the same way. I feel like they used the song to tell a bigger story.
Yeah, I agree.
That was what I was hoping. Yeah.
Because I mentioned at the top of this interview that I also watched the Cisco one, which
right.
which I interviewed him for that. And that was very thong song specific, much more so than yours, which is fun. Right. It's very enjoyable, as it's completely different type of documentary, but that was very specific to that song, while yours sort of, I agree, it was kind of more of a springboard.
Right. That's what I think. But yeah, like I had said also in the doc, like, I don't think the song really belongs to me anymore. You have to get permission if you're going to use it. Like, it's my thing. I wrote it. It is my work, but it doesn't belong. That's why it's like, you got to let things go. Like, you're going to let things go. But like, I'll follow Stevie's advice. She told me, she's like, Vanessa, do you think there's ever one show that I don't play Landslide? She's like, I've never played one show in my life where I don't play Landslide. I don't think there's ever been a show where I never played 1,000 Miles. So I listened to her.
How did you and Stevie Nicks, I know she was actually officiated your wedding. I know I've seen videos on YouTube of you guys performing together. How did that friendship begin?
The Record Plant Studio in LA. They were down the hall working, like editing on something, editing a TV special. I was working on my second record. It was like her and Lindsay and a friend of mine. His name is Todd. I have to send him this because I never gave him credit. Todd Trina, he's like very social. He just went and it was the kind of studio where the artist names are on the doors. Sometimes it can be really a who's who hallway. It's crazy. I think it's still open. Anyway, he just went, knocked on their door and said, my friend is, she's a huge fan. She'd love to meet you, whatever. Stevie and I also coincidentally, because Jimmy was my boss, and Jimmy had produced Belladonna, and you know, they had dated. They were like, we shared, and she was actually said, Vanessa, I was like, Vanessa, Jimmy was the one that sent me your first record. Like, I'm a fan of your, you know, and she knew who I was. I nearly died. So, that was the beginning. And then when my second record came out, and that was like not really, it tanked in all these ways that like I was issues going on with the label. Like they had stopped, they pulled support. It was not, it got censored on MTV, whatever that video was. Stevie came along and saved the day, and she called me and she was like, do you want to open for me on tour this year? And it was like one of the greatest moments of my career to this day. It was like the height of like the death spiral of my second record, which had all these, I don't know what my expectations were for it, but it was a bit of an odd record. And I was happy that I had done it the way I had done it, but it was rough. It was a rough time. And she took me under her wing. And I've been there ever since.
Amazing. Well, we're running out of the time, but there's one thing, sort of is related. So Stevie Nicks, you know, obviously, you know, Rumors was very much about interpersonal stuff going on with Fleetwood Mac. And whenever anyone writes a song, particularly, I actually think whenever a woman writes a song, everyone wants to know who it's about. And a lot of people, it's kind of like You're So Vain or You Ought to Know. People want to know. And you don't divulge in the film who 1,000 Miles is about. I assume you will not divulge it to me. There are rumors out there that seem to have been resparked by this film. People, there's like a Reddit thread where people are like doing, yeah, there's a full-on Reddit thread. They think it's a certain actor who was in an Oscar-nominated, Oscar-winning film. I'll leave it at that. But you're free to tell me, but I'm not going. I'm assuming.
Did they choose the gender? It's so funny when people assume the gender. I love.
The Reddit thread thinks it's a man.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm so shocked that you asked me this question. No, I'm being sarcastic.
No, but I mean, you don't have to tell me, but I'm wondering why
I'm
you
not.
think,
Don't worry, I'm not telling you.
Why do you think people like are so curious is more what I'm getting at. You know.
Oh, well, because it's just gossip, or like, especially, I don't think that they would be interested if I said it wasn't someone that was famous, or, you know, who no one cared. Like, probably no one cares. That's why. I feel like it's just got so, but I think that I get to have that for myself. I never said who it was. And I think that it would ruin the song. But I was able to say a little bit, just
a
enough.
little. Alanis Morissette has never confirmed the rumors about who You Ought to Know is about. To my knowledge, Carly Simon has never totally confirmed what You're So Vain. It's kind of, you know, kind of would actually ruin it a little bit.
Let people enjoy that part of it, the thinking journey about that. They don't want to know. They don't really want to know.
Yeah. So yeah, you don't need to tell me, but I will let you know that the documentary has sparked some, there's a whole Reddit thread about it. People are like, it's like The Masked Singer. People are like Googling and figured out clues. So like the film has definitely captured people's imagination. So my last question would be, you know, this song was so huge. It's like, you know, been in all these iterations, all these pop culture moments. There's a whole documentary about it. It's kind of an open-ended question, but what do you think it is about this song that, as you say, transcends and has, you know, almost 20 years later, still, you know, people still love this song so much?
It's very pure. I think it's just very pure. Like, there's nothing, I don't know, because let's quote Heidi Carlton. Can we quote Heidi Carlton, my mother, who puts it, she's just the queen of the one-liner. She's like, what did she say? She didn't say my friend. She said, and that is what you call magic. And I looked at her, I was like, thanks, Mom. I mean, look, I think there's some things, like there's combinations of notes and things like it's that just can take you into another place. And like, it's like cast a spell, you know? And I also wanted to say that I think it really is timing of like that time. It was like right before everything went online. When people were still buying music, they still have very like only a few lanes in which you would receive new songs and new music. So I really kind of got it. I was like one of the last ones to get it at people in sort of like the old school way of selling music. I think that's part of it too.
Totally.
maybe.
Well, speaking of new music, I do need to let you go, but before I do, what are you working on now? What's next for you?
Thank you. Yes, I had the great privilege of working with Dave Fridman on my latest record, who's just such a fabulous person and producer. The
I'm a
best.
very big Mercury Rev fan. Very big.
Yes, me too. And that was one of the reasons. And so anyway, he produced my last record. Sent him some unsolicited demos to his website email address, and I had an incredible time working on that record with him. It's called Love is an Art. It came out the worst possible time in the world last March. So we re-released it this past March, sort of added some of my demos to it. And I've just started writing songs I hadn't written in like a year and a half. And I'm telling you, I think I'm already writing music for a new record. I'd love to go back in with him. But yes, I just did a record with the fabulous Dave Fridman, and it's called Love is an Art.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to the future collaborations with him as well. And thank you so much for being so generous with your time and so open with me. I really enjoyed this conversation very much.
Me too. Thank you. That was wonderful.